In this video, I'm going to show you how to install a backup camera in your car. This installation is really easy, but there are 2 or 3 things that tend to confuse a lot of people, myself included, honestly, that I will make clear in this video so you don't have to go through the frustration I did. The principles of connecting the backup camera to an aftermarket head unit will apply to most vehicles. The demonstration vehicle here happens to be a 2002 Lexus ES300 with an aftermarket Android radio head unit that I've already installed. Subscribe to my channel if you want to check out that video. Okay, so as we've established, this procedure is nearly identical for any car's backup camera installation. You just need to answer 2 key questions. Namely, number 1, does your car have and use a CAN-bus adapter box? And number 2, are you okay with the camera only coming on when you put the car in reverse, or do you want to be able to view the camera feed whenever you want, in addition to reverse? Either way, I'll show you exactly what to do, and the install should ideally only take you a couple of hours. Alright, first, does your car need a CAN-bus adapter box? As a general rule of thumb, if your car was built before about 2007, then you will not need to use a CAN-bus adapter box, and you will use what I'm going to call analog control of your backup camera. If your car is newer than about 2007, then you probably have CAN-bus digital controls of in-car functions like steering wheel controls, climate control, or radio volume dimming when backing up, for example. A foolproof method of finding out which you have is when you disconnect the stock radio, you only lose audio. Then you don't need a CAN-bus adapter box. However, if you lose climate control, steering wheel controls, or the car doesn't start or gives errors, then you do need to use a CAN-bus adapter box. Okay, so here is the wiring diagram for a car without a CAN-bus box. This includes my car, and this is what I'm going to show you in this video. So the yellow camera cable plugs into the yellow CAM-V-in plug on the back of the radio, and its little red wire attaches to the brown reverse wire coming from G5 on the back of the radio. On the other end, in the trunk, the yellow wire plugs into the yellow camera wire, and both the red power wire and the little red pigtail wire attach to the reverse light 12-volt power. The black wire connects to ground. Now, if you're using a CAN-bus adapter box as described earlier, the connections are similar, however, the little red pigtail wire at the back of the radio now connects to the red CAM12V power wire. And in the trunk, the red pigtail wire only needs to attach to the red power wire, with no need to wire this to the reverse light power. Alright, let's get started. Again, I'm going to wire for analog control of the backup camera, so to begin, we need to access the back of the radio. So remove the trim pieces and pop the radio out. Refer to my previous video for details on dismantling the dashboard. Okay, so here's the back of the radio, and we'll run a quick test of the camera before we string it through to the trunk. So connect the camera to its long yellow camera extension cable, and then connect the other end of that to the CAM-V-in yellow cable on the back of the radio. Then attach the little red pigtail to the brown reverse wire. By the way, there is some confusion online about this reverse wire. Note that this wire is an input, not an output. It does not put out any power or signal. It is just a trigger in. So that means that if you supply voltage to this wire, it tells the head unit that the vehicle is in reverse. On the other end, the end with the camera, we will temporarily attach the little red pigtail wire and the red power wire together. Our quick test will consist of us attaching these then to the CAM12V red wire to supply power to the camera. This will mimic shifting the car into reverse and powering on the camera. So right now, before we attach the power, we just have the home screen on the front of the radio. When we supply power, we see the camera output as well as the guidelines. Sorry for the glare, but there is an image there. So note that the only thing we need to connect at the back of the radio is the yellow to yellow RCA connection of the long extension cable to CAM-V-in, and then the little red pigtail wire on the long extension cable to the brown reverse wire. So I will use one of these little splice connectors to connect the little red wire to the brown reverse wire. By the way, I hope you're finding this video useful. If so, please subscribe or hit the like button. It actually helps me out a lot and I greatly appreciate that. Okay, so next, take the video cable bundle and we're going to begin stringing this through the car. So run it behind the dashboard and behind the steering wheel. Now, under the steering wheel, put the bundle through and tuck it up so it won't get caught in your feet when you drive. Next, remove this piece of trim by gently pulling it off. This is a good opportunity to clean off the dirt and sand. Then, run the wire along the existing bundle and fit it under the bundle clips. Okay, next, pop off this next piece of trim with a removal tool. Then, gently pop it off. You don't have to remove it, we just want it up enough to string the wire underneath. Next, remove the trim piece on the back door and continue stringing the wire. Now, near the back here, just tuck it in behind the seat about halfway up. So now, in the trunk, feed a grabber tool up behind the trim. Then, through this metal access hole, which is the one we will go through. Next, remove the lower part of the back seat by pulling up firmly on both ends. Then, remove the back of the seat by removing the 4 12mm bolts. Pull up on the backrest to unseat it from its hook. Check out my video on subwoofer removal and repair for more details on removing the back seat. So here we've got it pulled back just enough to see the grabber tool poking through. Grab the end of the wire with the grabber and feed that through. Then in the trunk, pull the grabber through to string the wire into the trunk. Okay, so next we'll remove the carpet on the inside of the trunk. Use a flat-bladed screwdriver or a plastic trim removal tool to remove the plastic button clips. And next we'll remove the emergency release lever. To do this, pry the halves of the handle apart. Then compress all 6 tabs at the same time. So I found it worked well to pry about 2 or 3 tabs with a screwdriver and then pull it off at an angle. Here's the trunk with the carpet removed. Here is the reverse light. So the black and white cable is the ground, and the green and yellow is the 12-volt power. So this is where we can tap in for the camera power. We want to mount the camera to this trim piece above the license plate. To do that, we'll remove it by removing the 4 10mm nuts. Eventually we will feed the camera through this port for the license plate light. So remove the 4 10mm nuts, then compress these tabs to remove the license plate lights. Alright, so here's the removed trim piece. We're going to mount the camera right about here, so we'll drill 2 small holes for the camera mount. If you don't want to remove or drill into your trim piece, they sell these license plate trim covers for about $10 that hold the camera for you. I'll put a link to one of those below. So I made a couple marks, then pre-drilled them with a drill press. And now, string the wire through the license plate light hole and mount the camera to those 2 holes. And here we've installed the trim piece again, and the wire just feeds in next to the license plate light. Reinstall the 4 10mm nuts to hold the trim on. So here we have the camera video cable coming here with the power cable. And we're going to take the little red pigtail wire and tap it into the green and yellow cable. I added a little ferrule to the end of it. These are pretty handy. I'll put a link for these in the video description too. This sends 12 volts to the radio, telling it to switch the screen to the video feed and turn on the guidelines, which will show up on the screen when we put the car in reverse. Note that this little red wire is not an output from the radio to the camera, rather it is an incoming trigger signal to the radio. It's an important distinction. We are sending 12 volts to the radio to tell it that the camera is now in reverse. In this configuration, this is not powering the camera. Now we have some options for powering the camera itself. The standard way of doing this is to put the camera power to the same place as the little red pigtail wire. In this case, we can only ever see the camera feed on the screen when the car is in reverse. For most people this is perfect, and if so, that's what you should do. Wire the camera power to the green and yellow wire of the reverse lights. However, if we want to be able to view the camera anytime, not just when the car is in reverse, then we need to tap the camera power into a constant power source. You could go into the green and orange wire here, which will give you camera power, but only when the headlights are on. Otherwise, you can find an alternate source of 12 volt power, and that's what I opted to do. Quick note, once you decide where you want to derive power from, you should install a more permanent splice. Tapping into the power with these pins will not provide long-term stability. I'm just doing it this way for now so that I have options and can quickly change to different power sources. In my car, it had an old-fashioned GPS system in the trunk, which I am no longer using, so I'm going to tap into pin 18 on this unit. This will give the camera power anytime the key is in the on position. If you don't have this, you could also string a separate wire all the way from the back of the radio, remember the CAM12V wire, and feed that along with your camera wire all the way to the trunk and wire that to your camera's power. You would string this power wire at the same time that you were stringing the camera extension wire. Anyway, you have options. Next, we want to remove the plastic trim from the trunk arm. To remove the buttons, press the center and pull it out. Then pry the plastic tabs out. This is tricky to do without damaging the plastic, but anyway, stick a small screwdriver into the slot and press the back of the tab to slide it out. Then compress this clip and remove the trim. Here is what that tab looks like on the inside. So ideally, you'd stick your screwdriver in here and pry to get the tab out. Next, tidy up the wires and zip tie them in place as necessary. Make sure you have enough excess to be able to open and close the trunk. Ideally, you'd make sure these connections were nice and tight. Once the wires are positioned, put the trim piece back on. I have the accessory power going to pin 18 and the ground going to pin 11, in case that helps. Other videos I've seen suggest that the ground wire isn't necessary, and it does appear to work without it, as it's likely getting ground from the VGA wire. Okay, so there's one more step you need to do if you want to be able to view the camera at any time, not just reverse. This is very important. You need to add a VGA splitter cable behind the radio. I'll put a link to the type you need in this video description below. So this splitter will go from the yellow RCA extension cable, coming from the camera, and then split. One end to the CAM V in, and the other end to CVBS in. This will allow you to send the camera video feed to both the reverse and auxiliary. Alright, so let's test this out. So if we start up the car and go to the home screen and select auxiliary, we can get the camera feed. If we put the car in reverse, the camera automatically comes up and the guidelines appear. To adjust the guidelines, tap the screen and select line settings to change the length, width, and angle, and such. Alright, so now I want to show the camera in action a little bit. For safety purposes, someone else is videotaping this. Here, we're driving on the freeway and we've pulled up the rear camera video feed. I find this really helpful for keeping an eye on those cars that like to hang out in your blind spots, as well as to see if it's safe to change lanes, or what's behind you. Alright, so that's it for the camera installation. I hope you found this video helpful. If so, will you like and subscribe? It really helps me a lot and I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. All the best.